Over the last few weeks, we have seen a number of announcements by the government to boost consumption, as spending is crucial for a faster turnaround of the economy. In fact, government feels that measures like leave travel concession voucher and festival advance scheme have the potential to boost demand by nearly 73,000 crores. But are these really helping people on the ground this festival season? Let's find out in India Revival Mission on Times Network. I am Hina Gambhir. Joining us today is Dr. Arvind Virmani, former Chief Economic Advisor, and we have with us PN Vijay, Senior Banker and a well-known economist. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on Times Network on India Revival Mission. Let me begin this discussion with Dr. Virmani. What is your point of view, sir? Do you think that the kind of announcements that have been made since March till now are having some impact on the consumption story here in India on the demand side?
During the lockdown, we had pointed out that 40% of the economy was functioning, 60% was closed down, and we had shown that in each case, demand was equal to supply, so no fiscal policy would work. After that, in the transition, which is the last quarter which has just passed, we had said that there would be a fragmented demand and supply condition. That means you would have demand-supply imbalances which could go either way. So again, a kind of undifferentiated fiscal boost would not be useful and may actually create problems in certain areas. So I think the reason for the background is that we had recommended that be very careful that in the transition you have to be very targeted and make sure that the natural demand revival occurred, one, by taking precautions about COVID, and secondly, by making sure that the logistic chain started functioning. So we had repeatedly emphasized this, and I think by and large, the union government has got that message and has been trying to do that. So, people keep asking me every time there's a boost in some indicator that, are you surprised? No, that is exactly what was expected. There was this uncertainty and we expected that boost to occur. So the monetary credit focus has worked. The targeted support from the central government to sectors which needed it has worked. Now, as we go forward into the next quarter, yes, a bigger and more careful or a larger stimulus may be necessary. So I would say yes, the approach adopted by the center overall has worked so far.
Okay, very interesting point of view there. PN Vijay, where do you stand? Do you think the kind of announcements that have been made, the targeted approach of the government seems to be working on the ground for the people?
I would broadly agree with Dr. Virmani. Let me look at a couple of data points for you. If you look at the e-commerce sales during the festival season, it was 55% up at $4.1 billion compared to last year. Not even last quarter, but last year. Automobile sales have been overall more than 20% more, whether it's Maruti or Hero motorcycles or Tata Motors, than the previous last year. Thirdly, the GST collections have crossed more than 1 lakh crore. And fourthly, if you see the one was automobiles, other was e-commerce, the third was GST, and the fourth is the PMI Purchasing Managers Index. Why is the PMI and Purchasing Managers important? Because that shows the level of actual manufacturing activity in the economy. The consumption improvement which you see by auto sales or e-commerce sales or even FMCG sales of the likes of Hindustan Lever or Dabur or Colgate could be ascribed to pent-up demand. But here we are having manufacturing index at 59, which is an all-time high, which indicates that the economy is reviving in a very significant way. Now, whether it is the efforts of the government or it is whatever, a lot of good work has been done, and I think the revival has been very, very positive. The only thing one could be worried about is the employment figures. If you look at the employment data, After being pretty robust in June, July, August, when it came to September and October, the employment data has slipped and the unemployment has gone up. So this shows that certain sectors, employment-intensive sectors like tourism, construction, are feeling the pain. So these are sectors the government has to work on. But on the whole, one can say that the slew of measures which the Modi government has done since March seem to be delivering at this point in time.
Okay. Mr. Gurcharan Das, author and former CEO, Procter & Gamble India, is also now joining us on India Revival Mission. Mr. Das, what is your assessment of the kind of measures that the government has announced since March till now? The latest one, of course, being the LTC and the voucher scheme, especially for the festival season. Do you think these kind of measures are helping us improve the demand in the economy with some green shoots emerging?
Well, I think green shoots are emerging, and I hope the worst is behind us. We can never be sure with this wretched virus because there could be a second wave coming. But so far, at least, fingers crossed, one feels that the infections have peaked and that unless there's a very severe second wave in the winter, that we will be normalizing. And there are many positive things which Vijay has mentioned. And Vijay, the bumper agricultural harvest, the power demand is up. The shipments to eBay bills are showing up. GST collections are normalizing. Rail freight is up. So all these PMI index, the industrial demand index, is also showing good results. The worry I have really, obviously, the hospitality industry, etc., are the ones which are a problem, and they will take time. However, I do feel that one sector which is really so important for India's future is exports. No economy became prosperous in the world without export. And I fear that we have gone protectionist and it will hurt us and hurt jobs. The priority of this country has to be jobs. And to get those jobs, you need growth, obviously. And Arvind mentioned certainly that infrastructure is a very major help in this area because it creates direct jobs for the people, but I just feel that this one, I wish I could feel a little more optimistic about our export prospects because I really, since 2013, really our exports have been basically stagnant. And that's a very, very sad story, I believe. In terms of what the government should be doing, I think the classical way is the only way. No packaging, etc. No special giveaways. Would say focus on job creating. The housing creates jobs. Construction creates jobs, and that's really the most important thing.
Okay, let's get a quick reaction from the other two guests as well on the concern that has been raised by Mr. Gurcharan Das. Let's begin with Mr. P.N. Vijay. What about this fear of protectionism that people are talking about? Aren't we focusing enough on exports? Is the messaging somewhere being misinterpreted?
Dr. Das has hit a very, very important point in this whole debate. In our sort of enthusiasm about self-reliance, which one has seen, I think we are losing sight of our global competitiveness. Let's be honest, as we said, unless you are globally competitive, you are not going to create the jobs, you are not trying to get the growth that you will get. So I think there has to be a tremendous focus on exports. We have to get into detail, whether it's service exports, whether it's manufacturing exports, and we don't seem to have an aggressive export policy. Somewhere in all this conversation, we have lost that focus which was once there. And of course, the other points, which are again the emphasis on housing and construction, these are very high employment multipliers. When you invest X amount in housing, apart from the fact that housing is a basic need for all our citizens, it creates a great multiplier effect. And thirdly, in those cases, government needs to be only a facilitator. Government need not make big investments, but aggressive action is required. And last but not the least, hospitality. Hospitality, I've read some reports which give a tremendous idea about the employment multiplier of hospitality. Of course, COVID, as Dr. Virmani has been pointing out, has been a big dampener on hospitality. But if in some way we can revive tourism and hospitality. So a three-pronged approach of export competitiveness, housing and construction, and hospitality could be a better way than a general welfare scheme which the Modi administration has so far been doing in the last few months.
Okay. Dr. Virmani, what is your point of view on the issue of this fear of protectionism?
A couple of years back, the focus was on Make in India. And I think and I'll tell you where the weakness was, but I think Atmanirbhar is starting to move towards a better concept of self-reliance and self-confidence. Now, of course, the basic competitiveness there's no disagreement between the three of us that it's really domestic reforms which will set the stage for the for competitiveness of the economy, whether it's with respect to exports or import substitution, etc. So there are a lot of things which have been done, including the labor laws, agriculture, etc. And I don't think enough importance has been given to that. I have recently given a talk on that. Now, the difficulty is that I differ a little bit, and let me mention the two categories and then tell you. So one side, of course, is this what I propose actually is a dualistic trade policy, which is a kind of conventional foreign trade approach to the rest of the world, but a focused targeting or import substitution with respect to countries like China, which have had an unfair, they've used non-trade barriers, they've used all kinds of practices which I think are wrong, and the only way to deal with those are that. Unfortunately, and the second part which is right is capital subsidies. The PLI scheme, I think, is a good idea because you have to have sustainable import substitution, not sustained protection. See, where we went completely wrong in the 60s and 70s was you kept expanding the protection. So the problem right now is that it's been too broad. It has been scattershot. It has to be very, very carefully done. Estimates by, I think the former CA has estimated that the tariff increase was about 5% on 70% of the products. What I would say is that you need to focus it on 25% of the products, but have a temporary, let's say 10 to 20%. I'm just giving you a rough idea for 3 years or something combined with this PLI scheme. So I think the focus, the broader Atmanirbhar can work if it is very carefully targeted and planned for a particular purpose, where the PLI scheme must be complementary to it.
Okay, now I want to ask each one of you about the new economic package that we are expected to see from the government very soon. We don't know the date yet, but that's something that the government has been working on. Government has been taking suggestions from different stakeholders as well. Let's begin with Mr. Gurcharan Das. Will this be the right time for the government to come out with a package when government also acknowledges the fear that there could be a second wave of coronavirus? Look what's happening in the national capital. Almost 7,000 cases coming now on a daily basis. So is it the right time? If yes, then in what form should it come?
Make in India should be Make in India for the world. And if you want to make in India for the world, I would say that in every ministry, there is scope for improving competitiveness. And maybe it's time that we got an economic czar in our country, where who's recognized as a minister of ministers. I mean, the prime minister cannot spend his time on all this, but a senior person who is maybe set, who is put him in the PMO, but that person is able to work through, labor, agriculture, these laws are going to help us. Similarly, railway freight, air freight, the various areas that we have, power costs, logistics costs, all these are reducing our competitiveness. And so as we think about this package, the stimulus, link it to jobs, link it to link it to doing the things that we should be doing for the long term. It's a long battle ahead, and it's going to take time. And there's really the classical way to do it, and that is, everybody knows that anyway.
Okay. Mr. P. N. Vijay, what is your view?
If you look at the government's actions in the last 6 months after COVID, 6-7 months, it has been welfare driven. Government has taken the people, the 60-70% at the bottom of the pyramid, and targeted with huge direct injection of cash, food, welfare economics, which has really worked, I can tell you. Only now, only in hindsight, one can see all this transfer has meant a huge difference to a poor country like India. Next time around, I think the government will be very targeted. They've been receiving any number of suggestions from industry, from economists, from public opinion. And the targeting would be, as the other two senior gentlemen have said, making India competitive in terms of exports, in terms of jobs, and also targeting certain sectors which are lagging behind in a big way, i.e. construction and related housing. And number two, they might have a strong farm-driven export policy. Today, after much discussion, much of street talk, we have put through many modernizations in the farm sector. And to reap the benefit of that and ride on that, we could easily improve our farm exports at a 25-30% every year. Now that we have cleared away the historic debris that we have had. So a farm-driven policy may also be on the cards, I believe.
I give you the last word, Dr. Virmani. What is it that you wish to see in the economic package that the government is expected to come out with?
There are three important things, I think, which need to be done by March 21, which will affect both these. One is that GST simplification and rationalization still remains to be done. I think 60% of the work was done, but that next 40% is very critical to really get the full benefits of it for small industry, for employment, etc. The second one is direct tax code. Again, there's committees have been given their reports, etc. I think the government should take the bull by the horns and do it in the next budget, because again, people, general public thinks of it as our personal income tax, but it affects all the companies. It affects startups, it affects MSMEs. It will change the environment for these employment generating, those who actually generate employment. And the third one is the EODV in foreign trade. I think I agree with Vijay. I think some focus have started coming. There was a news report that logistics, I forget the exact numbers, but like instead of 60%, 75% of the goods had been cleared, in 48 hours. So that ease of doing import-export is going to be a very important factor in joining supply chains and pushing up exports. So these are very briefly are the three important things which I hope will be done in the next 3 to 6 months.
All right, Dr. Virmani, Mr. P. N. Vijay, Mr. Gurcharan Das, appreciate all of you for joining us here on India Revival Mission, the show which only talks about solutions to the current crisis that the economy is into. And we really hope that the government will take some of these suggestions, and some of these could become a part of government's next economic package that is expected very soon. Thank you very much for joining us.